I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates, Mina Kyles.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Tayler Kyles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks and Game Time. Today, I am joined by friend of the pod, Mina Kyles of ESPN, to talk about some season superlative predictions, because obviously, this may not be the best season the Patriots have had, maybe in recent history, potentially, because the bar is very low, but new seasons are all about hope. So today, we're going to touch on some players who deserve some recognition and could give Patriots something to get excited about for 2024. And without further ado, Mina, how the heck are you? Welcome back. And how are we feeling 1 week out from the season?
Excited. Excited to stop talking about Cowboys contract standoffs and who's under the most pressure and trying to predict what the Jets offense is going to look like and all the great mysteries of the 2024 season. Excited to actually just watch some football and talk about it.
Hell yeah. This is the worst part. I'm not good at predicting. I feel like that's when I put my foot in the mouth the most. Now we're actually going to have results to analyze. It's going to be a lot of fun. So before we get into the superlatives, I want to touch on some quick hitters, kind of housekeeping notes for the Patriots, because we haven't spoken in a while. So when it comes to the Patriots, obviously new regime, very, very different roster. Obviously, losing Bill Belichick and all the pieces they did lose, things are going to get tough. Christian Barmore, we don't know when he's going to play. Matthew Judon's been traded. But when you look at this team, especially with an eye towards the future, do you think they got better or do you think they got worse this offseason?
Well, I think you hit on it. It depends on the time frame that you're looking at, because in the short term, they got worse. Not a very good football team. They know they're not a very good football team. I don't think there's any expectations they're going to win a lot of games this year. Obviously, you got major losses on defense, offense. The offensive line is a massive issue. We'll talk about that. But in the long term, if you drafted the quarterback of the future, if you got some core pieces, guys like Jalen Polk, for example, who you and I talked about before the draft, I think, and Christian Gonzalez coming back from injury, then I think you could argue, yes, in the long term, they're going to be a better football team.
I think you made Patriots fans very happy with your Jalen Polk analysis. We brought it back up from the show. You bugged it a little bit, and I think people felt a little better because people been sleeping on Jalen Polk, but not after this summer. I think now, and he might start week 1, by the way. So hype train is very much rolling. Maybe we'll get into him later, but you touched on Drake Maye. So let's talk about it. Drake Maye will not be the starter in week 1. That's going to be the veteran Jacoby Brissett, drafted by the Patriots, spent a season in the Alex Van Pelt Browns-esque system. But obviously at some point, Drake Maye's got to take the reins. So when do you think that's going to happen? And what do you think it's going to take for Drake Maye to get on the field?
Yeah, well, aside from Brissett potentially getting hurt, which feels kind of bleak to even bring up, but after
I heard twice this preseason,
I know. After seeing him get walloped, it's hard not to think that that's a possibility, and it's hard to, by the way, to not say that and then feel worried about Drake Maye going out there. But setting that aside, mid-season, I would probably have to look at a stretch where maybe if coming off of games against better defenses, if Brissett plays poorly. I mean, the thing about Brissett, Tayler, is I actually think he's probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And I think, honestly, better than some of the starters, not many, but a few of the starters out there. But he is a quarterback who plays a lot better with protection. And seeing him by that offensive line made me think, oh, we might see this change happen a little bit earlier than people expect.
Yeah. One thing about the Patriots offensive line, I will say, when you look at like the entire body of work, which, it's my job, so it makes it a lot easier when I actually get to watch every snap these guys play, which isn't easy for most. It hasn't been terrible, but it's been the times that Jacoby's gotten hit. It's been very ugly. Like, he's taken some real shots. Obviously, you want to mitigate those. And obviously, when Drake Maye comes in, you want to maybe have that offensive line situation at least figured out, because the left side is 2 backups right now in terms of the rotation they want. But we're trying to skew positive for this show because we know there's some bad that we're going to have to endure, but we do want to give some recognition to the guys we should get excited for. So starting with the offensive side of the ball, who is your Rookie of the Year candidate? Lots of options to pick from because 7 of their 8 players drafted were, in fact, on the offensive side of the ball.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm going to go with Maye. Obviously, he's might not play even half of the season. We discussed that. We'll see how things shake out. But I think what you saw in the preseason is a lot of what I saw in college, what made me like him so much as a prospect, which is dude is just an absolute playmaker. I mean, you could just tell a second he was in there. It just looks different when you have those sorts of physical tools. And I think, by the way, also mentally, he's a little bit farther advanced than maybe he's characterized. Now, again, it's a preseason. You're going against 2s and 3s and simplified defenses, and no doubt he's going to have some early career Josh Allen goofball moments for sure. A lot of it, actually, I think for similar reasons to Josh Allen, which is you saw sometimes in college he trusted his own arm talent a bit too much. It wasn't like, oh my God, what is this guy seeing? It's more like you need to learn that that's not a throw you should attempt just because you think you can do it. So that's it. But I just think that he's going to have the sorts of splash plays that make it clear to Patriots fans why he was drafted where he was. And, you and I talked about him before the draft. I liked him a lot as a prospect. I like him maybe even more after seeing what we have this summer. So whenever he gets in there, I'm not saying it'll translate to W's per se, but I think there's going to be some moments that get Pats fans really excited.
And the breakdown you gave is exactly how Drake Maye was this preseason. You saw the splash plays. You saw the things where it's like, yeah, this is why we get excited about this guy. And there was a bit of confusion, I think, with some in the pre-draft process where, sometimes the mistakes he makes, some people thought it was really just because maybe he wasn't quite smart enough. Because he is young, I get the idea on the surface. But when you watch his play and the way he reads defenses like coverage shells, the Patriots are going to throw everything at you, even with their backup defense when it comes to disguises on the back end. He solved those pretty well. But then you also saw the things like the jump pass to Pop Douglas where it misses him wide, or the forced throw to Jalen Polk into traffic. Like those things he's got to get under control, but that's obviously going to come with experience when he gets on the field. Now, year 2 jump candidate for this Patriots offense. This one is a little bit tougher, not quite as many candidates. Like even Mafe is no longer on the roster after getting drafted last year, but who do you think might be someone to take that jump as a sophomore?
Yeah, this is a lot easier. I'm just playing it up again, looking at the defense, because there's not really that many options. The one that pops out the most is just Pop Douglas, though. Just because I think, one, he's going to have opportunities in this offense, given the lack of skilled talent. I think also with him, I don't quite know where his ceiling is and what the best outcome is for him as a player. But I do know this. Feels like when the ball is in his hands, an explosive play is at least a possibility. He has juice as a player. And I think you saw glimpses of that last year for sure. And I think especially if Maye's in there as quarterback, you're going to see that a bit more.
And Demario Douglas, to his credit, looked like, again, not a high bar, but he did look like the Patriots' best receiver, but he looked different than everybody else. There was one practice where Christian Gonzalez was actually following him in the slot. He made Gonzo look bad. And I'm not one of those people who's scared because Gonzo wasn't great this preseason, but it just shows you the dynamic ability Pop has. And I like that you picked him because I have him as becoming one of the better slot receivers in the league this season, just based on what we saw this summer and even last season. You can hold me to it if you want, but we will see, because I really do. He looked pretty great this summer. All right, now, your most underrated player on offense. Who's someone that's not getting quite enough credit, whether it's with the national media or whether it's even kind of locally with Patriots fans?
Sorry, I'm looking at just making sure my answers aren't too obvious, I guess. I mean, I'm a Kendrick Bourne apologist, so I know he's hurt, but I feel like he is kind of perpetually slept on, and it's been the way for like 5 years or whatever. Yeah, I mean, look, he's not a number one, obviously, and I don't know if there is a number one on this roster as much as I like Jalen Polk, but I do think he is probably of all of the players in this roster, the one where I feel like the most comfortable with him on the field, especially with the youth. So, he's got great hands. I think he is a little bit, people kind of sleep on his size and speed a little bit as well. So, I would go with Kendrick Bourne.
One, I'm not going to lie, I've forgotten to mention Kendrick Bourne in the equation of this season just because he didn't practice this summer. Yeah. But he's still the kind of player, he's on a 3-year deal. At some point, he's going to factor into this offense. And with so many unproven pieces, of course, Jalen Polk's one of the guys you're hoping establishes himself. KJ Osborne looked pretty good this summer. You got Pop, but Kendrick Bourne, because I think he has so much more ability than he's gotten to show the past couple seasons, that's a great pick. Now, I don't think you're going to choose Jalen Polk for this next category, but I do want to give you the floor to talk about him a little bit. What do you expect expecting from Jalen Polk in year one? And for anybody who didn't get to see your take on him in the pre-draft process and when he was selected, why are you excited about him? Even though I think Patriots fans now understand where the hype is coming from.
Yeah. I guess because you have rookie of the year and it would be Maye since I gave him also MVP, which is,
Our choice.
But I feel like, I mean, there's obviously, I think Polk in the draft, probably the reason he dropped was perception that he's kind of like a high floor, low ceiling type player. The high floor, largely because of his unbelievable hands. And you certainly saw that on display in the preseason. I'm sure you've seen that on display in practice as well. He's just like such a soft, reliable target for a young quarterback. And I love the pairing of him and Maye in particular, because Drake Maye is aggressive. He will constantly attack. And you saw that in North Carolina, even when he was playing with, not very good wide receivers, frankly. And I think having a guy like Polk who catches just literally everything thrown in his direction is terrific. If you have a guy he's gonna attempt every back shoulder ball available, he's gonna, hit comebacks and some of the more difficult throws. And I think Jalen Polk's gonna really, really deliver in that regard. But I also think that characterizing him as has a low ceiling is a misapprehension of his abilities. I think sometimes in Washington, because he played in such a loaded group, particularly with Rome Odunze, maybe his upside was, I think, maybe like a little bit underrated, particularly as a route runner. I think he can actually work all three levels pretty good. So I'm excited to see him because, he has, I mean, like I said, there's no obvious number one here. The opportunities are there for the taking. And I think he is the kind of player who probably early on will get a great deal more targets than other rookies purely because of situation.
Absolutely. And that 3-level ability is maybe the biggest reason that, in my opinion, I do agree that he really is slept on, because people think of him as Jacoby Myers, who it's like, he's catching crossing routes, maybe a slant every once in a while. You put him inside the numbers and have him go on a fade, but you're not really thinking of Jacoby Myers as a deep threat. Jalen Polk's not like that. He's one of those, if he's even, he's leaving kind of guys, where we saw it in the preseason where a guy tried to hang with him vertically. The second he looked back for the ball, Jalen Polk's like, yeah, well, I'm still running and I'm faster than you in this kind of foot race. Not only that, but I also think he's a smart player. We did see those hands consistently. And with the lack of proven guys on this roster, Jalen Polk is primed for a great season. All right, we are going to get to our offensive MVP candidate. But first, quick word from our friends at Prize Picks. Be right back.
Prize Picks this time, and they are America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With over 5 million active members, it's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action this football season. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Prize Picks is actually running a promo for the month of September where one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you a win on Prize Picks. It's the entire week of September, so you can use that one passing yard as one of your blocks and watch the winnings roll in. You can see it on the screen in front of me. Caleb Williams right now. The over-under is 255.5, or the more or less rather, but it is 1 yard for Caleb Williams. So make sure to use that and put your Prize Picks together on the app. Download it today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get those $50. It's guaranteed. That's Prize Picks. Run your game.
All right, Mina, we're back. Offensive MVP candidate, who you got really carrying what's going to be a mid Patriots offense, most likely, if we're being very honest.
Yeah. I feel like MVP. I mean, it's like when Maye plays, I think he is going to be the guy who is a clear elevator of talent around him. Sometimes that elevator will be going down. It's going to be up and down a little bit year one. But I do really believe because of the circumstances and particularly the lack of protection, it will be very obvious that he has an ability to rise above them that maybe Jacoby Brissett, for all of his excellent qualities as a backup, doesn't. So I'll go with Maye here. I mean, I guess I could say, like, I don't know, Michael Manu or something. Like there's one. I mean, I think Stevenson's going to be kind of up against it, frankly, in the run game, as much as I like him. So it's hard for me to project a really good season for him. So I'll go with the young quarterback.
If they keep Mike Manu and rookie Layden Robinson on that right side, I gotta say, I'm a little more excited about Ramondre's output just because I've been hoping to see. As much as I don't love him when he would tackle, I really like the potential of those two just absolute bullies on the outside. Hopefully, this outside zone scheme kind of helps Ramondre Stevenson a little bit as well. But yeah, Drake May's got to be the guy, because if this is going to be the kind of team where in 2025 teams are saying, oh, or free agents are saying, I wouldn't mind joining the Patriots. They look like they got a little juice going. Trade candidates, people who actually want to join the team, because as we saw with Brandon Ayuk, the Patriots literally could not buy Brandon Ayuk services as hard as they tried. So I think that's a great choice. Now, moving on to the defensive side of the ball. We're going to skip Defensive Rookie of the Year on this one because the only option really is Marcellus Dial, Del Pettis, and Curtis Jacobs. And as much as I really enjoy those guys, I think Dial and Jacobs are really going to be more special teamers, if anything. And Pettis as the fourth safety, you can't really expect much from him. So we're going to skip right to year 2 jump candidates, which much easier than the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, this is a lot more fun to talk about. Yeah.
We were 3 defensive players last year. Now, Marte Mapu didn't participate in the entire summer. I'm excited about what he could do when he is healthy. That does kind of skew things. But who do you have as the year 2 sophomore candidate to break out for New England's defense?
Yeah, it's hard not to pick Gonzalez because I loved him as a prospect. And in the amount he did play last year, you saw, I think, a lot of those special traits, which is why, everybody's so optimistic about him, despite, I guess, what sounds like an up and down summer. And but I'm gonna go Keon White, man. I think year 2 is going to be is going to bring such a more well-rounded game in terms of like his pass rush repertoire, his disruptiveness in run defense. There's obviously great pressure on him to deliver on that front, given the loss of Matthew Judon and Christian Barmore. But you saw certainly in the preseason when he played, like he really has all of the tools, obviously the size, the athleticism and whatnot. I think it's kind of thing where like, okay, year 2, if he really starts to put his game together, he's going to be very, very scary to deal with.
Even Keon has said that that's a big focus of his game, is being more well-rounded, because he knows he's been better on the inside as a pro, especially late last season, really, when he came on. But he told us, I want to be better on the outside. I want to be a more effective pass rusher, because like he even didn't use power on the outside in training camp because he wanted to be able to become more diverse in his game. Rod Mayo said that he was one of the standouts in the spring. So I think you're onto something there. All right. Now, most underrated player on this Patriots defense, another category where I feel like there's a lot of candidates.
So many candidates.
I just don't think this unit gets enough love for how much talent they have at all 3 levels.
I mean, you could literally pick any of the linebackers. I'm looking at the depth chart right now. I like them all so much. I think they're all really, frankly, slept on. I mean, Juwan Bentley is one just like, you never hear him talked about nationally. And I mean, but other guys like Tavai, Jennings, like there's just so many good players on this. I think Kyle Duggar now is a little bit more known, so I'm not going to mention him. I'll go with Bentley just because I never hear people talk about him. And it's so, there are so few off-ball linebacker groups in the NFL that you can count on both against the run and the pass, particularly against everything that modern offenses do. And the Patriots year after year seem to be exceptional at that. Hopefully it's what probably quite a rise to Rod Mayo as the head coach of the football team, because of the work that they've done there. So, I mean, I think you could pick any of them, but I'll go with Bentley.
Especially now that all those guys are getting coached by Dante Hightower. I'll actually say all those linebackers look like they've been coached by Dante Hightower in the preseason. They were all balling out there.
My friend Greg Rosenthal always teases me, but I'm like, Dante Hightower is one of my favorite football players of all time. And I talk about him constantly and how, the Patriots don't win all those Super Bowls without Dante Hightower. You can point to every game. There's like a moment where he makes like a crazy play. But yeah, it's both amazing to see him out there and also makes me feel incredibly old.
Now, that's why you're a friend of the show, Dante Hightower. If he's one of your favorite football players, you should watch it. That's good stuff. All right. Now, we are going to get to the defensive MVP for the Patriots. But first, pay the bills with a quick word from our friends at Game Time. Be right back.
The Patriots are playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. You can get in over at Paycor Stadium for the lowest price guaranteed with Game Time. They have a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to your favorite teams play to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. We're going to do a live read right now, Taylor, with the B-roll, and I'm going to go on the Game Time app on my cell phone and check out just how much time or how much money you can get into Paycor Stadium for. Right now, it's looking like Patriots at Bengals, you can get in for as low as $136. That's down like $25 from the last time I did this read. Not that bad. They have super deals, amazing deals, great deals, all on the site, and they make it super simple to check out, pay, and get to the game. So we're going to do a lot more of these with the Seattle Seahawks coming up because that's going to be a home game. But if you're going out to Cincinnati, make sure you check out Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, Mina. Now, the most valuable player on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like this does get tougher without Christian Barmore because you could make an argument that he is the best player on this entire football team. But with him out indefinitely, we don't even know if he's going to be back this season. Who do you have as being the most valuable player on New England's defense?
I actually think this is really hard, especially without Barmore, because the way I see the Patriots defense is, and I've had them in my top 10. That was granted before the Judon and Barmore news.
Right.
I don't know where that would have them now, but they're still going to be fine, which is not a popular opinion, it seems. But I really believe like they don't have that many true superstars, but they have a lot of like A-, B+ players at every level, and they have depth, which is really an unusual. There aren't that many defenses across the NFL where I would look at and I'd be like, they got good players at every position. There's no like guy who's making $1 zillion who gets 18 sacks or whatever. I don't even know who's going to get 13 sacks in this defense. But my point is like, there's just good players at every level who are well coached and they tackle well, and that is a formula for success. But it makes this question very difficult. I think Christian Gonzalez has the upside to be the MVP. I think he has the ability to be a true shutdown corner, but I feel a little bit nervous picking him coming off of the injury. White again.
Moving well, I will say this summer, if that helps at all. Like he doesn't look like he's a guy who had a season-ending injury last year.
So he's the one I think with the highest ceiling. Keon White, maybe I would put in there as well. I think I'll go with Duggar, honestly, just because for me, he really embodies the identity of this defense, the way they play, all of the things, obviously the versatility, but also just the way he hits and tackles and moves. But like, it's an odd pick because, he's not even making that much money. Like it's,
not a lot of safeties winning defensive MVP for any team.
Listen, I mean, but I feel like pretty representative of how I view this defense, which is a lot of really, really good players.
Yeah. And with the sacks, I will say some guys that I think we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, tell me.
Wise, the old veteran who I think he's looked really good. Even in the preseason, he didn't play a ton, but it felt like every time he was brushing the passer, he was getting a sack. And O'Shane Zimenez, a guy who actually Jonathan Jones mentioned today, is someone who he thinks is going to surprise a lot of people. Didn't do a ton for the Giants last year, but the year before, he was really in the mix on the ball, off the ball, showed something as a pass rusher, really more well-rounded than a guy who's really elite at anything. But just for fans out there, if you're looking where the pass rush is going to come from, obviously Keon White, but those two guys I think are going to be in the mix as well. All right, now round this out with your floor and ceiling for the Patriots. How do you think the best case scenario looks for them, and how do you think it's going to look if all goes wrong?
You want record prediction or just general like?
If you got record prediction, I'll take it. I'm very nervous about record predictions.
I think it all starts with the quarterback because like the thing is this defense. It's funny. Even with all the losses, I still feel like they're going to win at like, I think 4.5 is the line for their wins. And I still feel like they clear that because I just think this defense is going to drag teams to hell a little bit. But so that's not really what the season is about. The season is about developing Drake Maye. And I think it's a really, really difficult task because of the issues in terms of the offensive line. And I have had a lot of difficulty answering the question of when should Drake Maye start. And I consider myself to be probably higher on Drake Maye than consensus, certainly at ESPN conversations I've had there. So success looks like Drake Maye playing and not getting hurt and being protected sufficiently so that he can actually develop. And I would say kind of what we saw in the preseason, we have ups and downs and talent and ideally one of the young skill players really developing alongside him. Like you see, okay, Jalen Polk, maybe he's not like a 1A, but he feels like a 1B. And then if next offseason you can continue building, that feels great. Worst case scenario is that, Drake Maye plays and the offensive line situation is so non-functional that not only does he not develop, but you actually feel like it sets him back as a quarterback. He develops bad habits, the classic David Carr scenario. Both of those things I think are within the realm of possibility, which is what is kind of exciting, but also kind of scary for Patriots fans.
Also, why it's not that bad that Jacoby Brissett is a starter right now. We all want to see Drake Maye, but he's under contract for quite some time. And ideally, if all goes well, he'll be here for a very, very long time. So let's just be patient. Let the kid get out there when the situation looks a little better for him. Maybe not perfect. Patriots keep saying he's the kind of boat that rises all ships or what have you, or he's going to be the elevator of that talent, like you mentioned. But, you also don't want to put him out there in a really crappy position either. But, Mina, thank you so much for your time. As always, please, before I let you go, let the people know where they can find you and what great stuff you got coming down the pipeline that we should be looking out for. Just note, this is being recorded on Tuesday, just in case I end up dating us in any way.
The Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny is my podcast. You can listen wherever you get pods. Check it on youtube.com/@MinaKimes. A lot of Drake Maye talk over the last month and a half. So if you want to go check out that channel, and also, I know I'm like, Hiram consensus, but actually everybody I've had on my show has been pretty excited about what they've seen in the preseason, which has been a lot of fun. And we're starting the season with my very first NFL preview episode of the year. We are doing every game this Thursday. I don't know how long that'll last, but Patriots fans, tune in now while we're talking about you. I will definitely, if Drake Maye plays, we'll also talk about you at that point too. But check it out wherever you get your pods.
And I'm also going to plug the Sean Evans pod that you did recently because I have such a huge crush on that man. That was an awesome podcast.
He's cool.
Kind of like best of both worlds kind of situation. It's fantastic. So check out all of Mina's great work. Once again, Mina, thank you so much for your time. And thank you all, as always, for watching. Now take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Peace, y'all.